Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining today. It's really good to see that we actually have people in the audience. This is awesome. After all these years of Zoom calls, this really feels good to actually have people here. We're here to talk about mental health and well-being in the creative industry. And first of all, I would like to really thank FMX for even allowing this talk to happen and even giving so much support to actually having this such important topic discussed on a festival like this. But yeah, I'm here joined by this lovely panel, as you can see in front of you. And I think before we even jump into the discussion, we'll have a bit of a discussion. Then, of course, we'll take some questions from the audience as well. But before we do that, I'll just start off with a bit of an introduction session, really. Like, if all of you wanted to introduce yourselves for the audience a little bit. Maybe start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurie Blavin. I'm current Global Head of Recruiting and Talent Acquisition for Scanline. And if we're doing self-promos, I'm actually doing a little speech tomorrow, also at, I think, 4 o'clock. And we have a booth if you want to come check us out if you're looking for work. But I've been in this industry a really long time, like too long. I'm an old lady. And I've just returned to Scanline. I actually started with them in LA 12 years ago when they were first, I think I was employee number 4. And now we have 1,300 people around the globe, and we are expanding into probably 4 new countries this year also. So thinking about the well-being of our staff and our employees and the culture is very, very important to us. It's one of the exceptional things that brought me back to Scanline after all these years. Is usually when a company grows from 50 to 100 to 200, there's some exponential change in the culture, particularly when you go over 500. And somehow they've managed to be this very large global company and still have a very intimate culture and really care for their employees. So for me, it's a privilege to be back with them. And I'm also going to talk about ways that we can all keep ourselves healthy and self-care.
Cool. And hello, everyone. I'm Jahirul Amin, or Jay, from Filmakademie. My intro is a lot shorter, and I've got no promotions today to offer you. So we could probably, unless we could do some one-on-one deals maybe. But I mainly do training for VFX, both for companies and universities, schools, and also our own internal training. So anything VFX animation related, training-wise, that's what I cover.
All right, so my name is Karin, and my introduction is also kind of short, so no promo either. And I must say, and most of the students in the room who are from the Filmakademie, they know I'm not an artist. I can poorly paint. I'm also not a technical director or expert. I can't code. And I'm also not a director with any creative ideas and awesome, like thoughts about topics. But what I have learned and what I gained some experience in is how to bring those people together, how to build a team and make the team work and protect the team from, like running into major mental health problems. And besides that, I'm trying to keep my students away, like from any major problems, also, like facing mental health issues. And that's basically what I do. Thank you very much.
Cool. I'll be brief as well. My name is Hugo Guerra. I'm originally Portuguese. I'm a visual effects supervisor and director. I work for a lot of companies, but I mostly known for a YouTube channel called Hugo's Desk. And I guess, maybe we start off the discussion already with this. Like, the reason I really thought of creating a panel like this is because of all the stresses and all the issues that I had in my career, which I wish I didn't pass through, but I did. And in fact, I guess the best way to start this discussion is really to, like you told me before, to speak on the elephant in the room, which is really the problems we have in this industry. And I've had a very long career for almost 20 years, more than 20 years now, and I've experienced a lot of stress and I experienced a lot of mental anxiety working on this industry, especially because of the really tough deadlines and the really tough environment that sometimes we are subjected to. And the reason I really think this panel is important to discuss, especially for all the young people on this audience, is so that you don't have to pass through the same issues that I am now passing as an older person. You know, like I'm now 45, and I'm experiencing, you know, some concentration problems because I've worked too much and worked too many late nights, and I'm experiencing sciatica back problems because I was sitting for too long without doing any exercise whatsoever. And I'm seriously not on the prime anymore of my life where I can actually work very long hours or even be concentrated for a large amount of time. And when I was younger, I ignored all these things. I've ignored well-being of myself into the detriment of my own health to try to deliver projects. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about this. And that's, I guess, serves as an introduction for myself. I guess the same way you were saying you're not an artist, I'm an artist, and I'm a broken artist, I feel, these days. I'm not going to blame anyone for that. I'm going to blame myself, you know, because the companies that I worked for are not the ones to blame. We're not here to blame anyone. I feel like we're here to have a positive discussion and to talk about what we could achieve and what we could start talking more in the future. But I really feel like I should have taken care of myself more when I was younger. And I really want all of you to take care of yourself better in the future as well. So I guess I'll start that discussion on that part, you know, like from a positive notion, what can we really do to stay more mentally healthy on an environment that is so hostile like this industry sometimes is, you know? Anyone wants to start off?
I'm happy to. Oh, sorry. Okay. I guess firstly, I'm just thinking out loud now, is surround yourself with good people, if you can. I've been very lucky that in both, you know, my time at DNEG as well, that I was able to surround myself with, you know, extremely talented artists, but at the same time, a lot of people that I met that were just fantastic. So, you know, some of the best people I would say I've met in the industry have come from there, and they've gone to other companies, and then my family as well. So I guess it's important to surround yourself with people who are supportive. Like there was a couple people, you know, family-wise, who don't quite understand what I do, and will probably never understand what I do. And it's probably the same for a lot of, you know, people out there. I think we were mentioning that you know, my parents, I could just say I'm, you know, an animator or a 3D person. They're like, what are you talking about? It's just, it doesn't exist as a role other than doctors, lawyers, and stuff. So, you know, I never personally got support from that side of things. But if you can still find, I don't know, good teachers or good just people who can critique your work honestly and push you, an artist, then that helps, I would say, in terms of, you know, keeping yourself going, especially because you will, in art, kind of tell yourself you're not good enough on many occasions, and you will have your work reviewed and judged by supervisors and leads, and they'll give you notes here and there, you know, for the rest of your life, possibly. And it's very easy to go, you know, I'm doing it wrong. And question your sanity at the same time, because sometimes they might be wrong and they're saying you're wrong. And I remember having one occasion on one project, and the supervisor, it wasn't the supervisor, it was the client actually, was wrong. But I questioned why I couldn't do what they were asking, and it just physically wouldn't work. But I still questioned. I remember being in the shower for an hour just thinking, why can't I get this working? And it was just physically, it cannot work. And so, you have to be careful, I think, with who you hang around with, I would say. Especially because this is a very, you know, people-orientated industry. So hang out with some fancy people, and I'm sure you'll be fine.
It's fascinating what you're saying, because in a way, like, this is also why we wanted to do this panel, because a lot of times I feel like people probably feel a bit alone on these kind of topics. And I really wanted to tell everyone here on the audience that although some of the supervisors and some of the artists that are in this industry for a long time might look like they are really in control and everything is going well, we all have issues, and we all suffer with the same kind of anxieties and stress, and also, like you said, thinking that we're not good enough, and having this kind of like feeling that we are not delivering to our highest standard, this is normal to have these feelings. And I think that anyone that tells you that they don't have those feelings, they are probably lying to you. I just feel like we just need to probably open up a bit more and talk more about those things.
Yeah, from my side, like I have a different approach because I'm closer to the students and I'm not in the industry. But for me, I think it's really important that you start as early as possible to talk about those topics. And I don't mean that we should, like paint the future black and say, if you stay in that industry, you will definitely, like face mental health problems or stuff like that. But I think it's more like a question of how to cope with it. And you start with it during a time that you are still studying. So you can, like try new things out. For example, and I apologize, like that I will mention that now for one student in the room. We had, like a team, and there was one person that said, okay, like I will take, like the role as a wellness manager in that team. And everybody stared at this person kind of, what? You're here as an artist, wellness manager? But this person kept an eye on, like the times, kept an eye on having some fun, kept an eye on who is feeling maybe not that well. And at the end, it was a success. And I think the name being a wellness manager kind of changed in a certain year at the movie academy right now, because it gave a completely new kind of approach and how to deal with it. And I think for me, that could be a way how you really start thinking about that and do something about, like protection. So it should not start in the industry. It should start earlier. So those are my thoughts.
I think about burnout, and it's so common. And particularly, I think if you're new in the industry and you're just getting started, or even a mid-level, it's almost like a badge of honor, which it doesn't need to be. You should be an advocate for yourself and for your own well-being. And I think there is a way, without being a poison pill, without being somebody in the company that's just creating negativity, to advocate for yourself and the people around you by creating, the smallest things. Even if you get up and go for a walk, if you go outside, if when you're not at work, you're not always thinking about work or looking at another screen. You need to sort of read a book or go to a museum and find inspiration and find ways of keeping your creativity alive that aren't just about looking at a screen. And I think that's an essential part of avoiding burnout. And self-care is to sort of find ways to give your soul, if you will, without sounding too hippie, some nourishment, some love, and get away from a screen long enough to just take care of yourself and to make room for yourself to do that at work as well. I worked at a place, they're out of business. I worked at a place called the Orphanage. And anybody who's ever worked at the Orphanage, it's a badge of honor and a badge of shame. And we used to have cots in the hallways because we were there 24/7 for very, very long periods of time. And the offices were in San Francisco, but they were on federal property inside the Presidio. And I had a bunch of people on my team. At that point, I was managing the department, who often would go and smoke some pot at lunch, which wasn't legal yet. But I would beg them to walk 2 blocks off federal property where it was a felony and into San Francisco where nobody cared. So that's another way of keeping yourself feeling good.
Obviously, we're not advocating for all of us to get high right now, but it could help as well. But it's funny that what you're saying about burnout. As someone that has been burned out a few times, I really feel ashamed now these days when I look back and I see that back then, this was like 2010, 2011, where I burned out the first time, and then I burned out again in 2014 when I left a large facility. The feeling at the time when I was working on the beginning of the year 2010s was that it was cool. It was considered cool to work late. It was considered, oh my God, you just did 36 hours. Oh my God, this is amazing. You're so good to the company. We're doing this and we're delivering and we delivered it in time. And I'm really ashamed of actually being part of that entire, pardon the French, bullshit at the time, you know. And now, I'm not saying that everyone is going to be with the same issues that I am, but I am now paying the price for those things, and that's why I really want people to consider the next time they want to work late, maybe walk away and go home and sleep the 8 hours you need to sleep before you can come back for a bunch of reasons. You know, I'll give you because I didn't sleep enough, because sometimes I was known on the company as the person that is a robot, never stops and never sleeps, and is always working. I now have optical nerve damage. I have elimination of the brain. I have back injuries. I have all sorts of problems that should be happening when I was 50 or 60, and they're happening when I'm 40 because I neglected my body and I just didn't treat myself correctly. I'm not saying everyone, not to mention that I'm also obese and all sorts of other issues I have there with heart disease and all sorts of problems. I'm not saying everyone in this room will have all of it or some of it or one of them. But it's much easier to get a lot of diseases if you don't treat yourself, especially if you work way too much. And I think people need to like cherish sleep more. I'll never forget, I read a book a couple of years ago about sleep. And the writer, forgive me, I don't remember the name of it now, but I'll put the link on the description of the video later on. But I forgot to... He was mentioning that sleep should actually be prescribed as a prescription, as a medical condition. I thought it was fascinating, this idea. When I read this on the book of someone that is burned out or someone that is really tired, that the doctor would actually force a prescription saying you need to sleep 8 hours a day, you need to show it to your employee and say, okay, you need to sleep 8 hours, otherwise you're going to burn out, otherwise you're going to have a lot of problems on yourself. So yeah, I guess burnout is something dear to my heart because I've been there before. But everyone in this room, really be careful with this, because it can really be... I've had people that had strokes, and I've met people that really destroyed their careers because of working too much, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that I'm a big fan of sleep, although, you know, admittedly, I don't get enough. And admittedly, if we're being honest, before I came to FMX, I was up till 5 doing a project, which I was enjoying, but I don't recommend it. But so I still have late nights. But the thing I guess I just wanted to follow up with is, I guess if you do your 8 hours at work, even though you then come away from the box, you can still be working. Like even me now, I'm looking at this wood here, and I keep looking at it, and I keep looking at the reflection on it, and the roughness on it, and the displacement
good ray
map.
tracing on it.
So I'm in the real world looking at it. I'm just ignoring all of you not going, it's really nice wood. I wonder what tree it came from. I wonder what diffuse, texture would look like on it, and the roughness. And it's the same with, so I think when people think you have to be at your desk to work, it's like, you can go to the zoo and you can look at a lion or a tiger, or go on a safari, or you could just go to the park and look at, lampposts and lights. Like I always look at lights at the minute and count the LEDs on them because I'm a bit of a sado like that. So you're still working, you're just doing it away from the office. And that all feeds back into your work. And we don't do that enough. Like the amount of students I get where they're making something and you say, what is it? And they'll go, it's meant to be a chair. And you go, okay, what kind of chair? And they're like, a chair. And it's like, okay, what kind of material? It's like, what do you mean, what kind of material? What kind of fabric? It's like, it's fabric. And it's like, okay, this isn't gonna work, because they're just so used to not looking at the real world anymore. So going out, getting some air, getting some sleep. Sleep also helps you, I don't know if it's the same book that you read, that I read, but it's meant to get your brain working when you're sleeping. Like your brain still works and it thinks about things and it carries on learning and it puts all the neurons and all of that stuff together. So yeah, I'm a big fan of sleep. I will sleep tonight, by the way. I'll make sure.
Yeah, Jay is right. Like I also stay very late sometimes working. But what I've now done these days is that if I, for example, stay until 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, I just put my timer for 8 hours. And so if I wake up at 12, I wake up at 12. That is it. Like I will responsibly, if I need to stay late to deliver something, if I really want to, because of course this is a creative business, and sometimes there are certain nights that I feel like doing something, and certain nights I don't feel like doing it. So a lot of times, like, I might work really late, but just make sure your clock is doing 8 hours, and you then go to bed, and then you wake up, and you have to take the burden of, okay, if I'm going to wake up at 12, I'm going to wake up at 12. I just have to organize my day that I'm going to wake up 12. Because everyone here will have a different view on this. I'm a night owl. I like to work at night, but I hate working in the morning. So I just now... Fortunately, I work from home. What I've done is I've decided I don't work before 12. I just don't. I start working at 1 o'clock or something. But then I work all the way until 7, and then I have dinner, and I watch some TV with my wife. And then I work a couple of more hours to just finish my 8-hour day. And then I go to bed, and then I repeat the next day. So you don't really need to be from 9 to 5. You can be flexible, especially if you're working from home. And if you're working for an employee, like, you should just have this conversation with the company and say, I would prefer to work on this X, Y, Z hour. Is that possible? Could we be more flexible? I'm sure the company would be open for it. And if they're not open for it, maybe you're on the wrong company, I guess. That would be also the thing to consider, because the company also has to help you, help them. That's kind of the thing as well. It's a two-way street. It's not just them and you know.
I'm going to put on a different hat for a second. How many people have heard of the Visual Effects Society here? Awesome. I hope you're part of it. I'm on the executive committee. And we have an amazing committee for health and well-being, which was founded by Emma Clifton Perry and Philip Wolf. And it's only been 12 months since it started. I think it was Emma who went to the executive committee and said, I think we need to look at this. And, you know, she had wrapped up a project on, I think it was Iron Man 3, and she opened her refrigerator, and when she looked inside, she had an onion that had grown about 1 meter and had a flower on it. So she took that out and planted it and left it on her desk as a sort of message that, you know, when we're working these hours, we're not feeding ourselves, we're not caring for ourselves, we're not, you know, eating properly or going outside, and so we started this panel, and it's pretty amazing. So whether you're a member of the VES or not, you can go on the website. We're going to have the links up on reference. Hugo's going to put them up after. But it's available for anyone as an outlet. And then if you are a member, then there's another set of services that are available to you as well, which includes someone to talk to. It includes discounts for like yoga and physical places that you can go to sort of work your body out and let your mind rest. And it's only been a year since we've had it up and running, and we've had like an overwhelming response. So I hope if you yourself are feeling, you know, depressed or burnt out, that you'll use these resources. There's also a great lecture series that with Chris Black from Weta, and one with Dykstra, John Dykstra from ILM, you know, Star Wars, that little movie. And we're just about to start filming the second series also as well. So there are places where you can go and you can get some relief and you can get some help, and you don't have to spend money. And it's people who are part of this industry, because, you know, if you often go to a therapist or a friend and you describe what we do, they don't get it. They would not understand how we work the hours we work and why we do it. So to actually get that wisdom from people who've been doing it and been tremendously successful at it, I encourage you to use that as a resource.
Okay, so, you know, we talked about crunch times. So I do a little loop back. So for me, the thing is, you know, like, if students or like teams, they are facing a crunch time. And I think you can't always avoid it. The best practice would be the things, you know, like that had been said. But if there, for whatever reason, is, you know, like a tight time, then I think the major thing is, in my opinion, that you stay in control So the point is you can say, okay, we do, like for 2 days, speed so whatsoever, creating or painting or developing or hackathon, whatsoever. But it has to be, there's a beginning and there has to be an end. And it has to be defined, and that's the point. So sometimes team can be really creative to say, okay, we go for those 2 days and it's really hard work. We don't stick to 8 hours, what's not good, I know. But after that, we take 1 day off. And sometimes the motivation in those days, those 2 days, is so high that it really, it produces some outcome. But I think it's important that it's controlled. It's not like crunch time from now until the project is finished. So if you are facing something like that, I think it has to have a starting point and an ending point. And the team or the people, like working in that environment has to agree to it. And that's sometimes what's not happening. So one team member decides, okay, let's go for that. And the others go, wait, I don't know. So they are kind of drawn into that. So that would be another aspect if you can't, avoid it.
Absolutely. And of course, like, we all know the stress that this environment can produce to ourselves, and because of the hard deadlines and client feedback and this and that. But there's also another thing that I would like to discuss with the panel, and this is really the impact of social media into this. Because back when I started in this business, we didn't have social media. So, we had pubs and bars, I guess, and we would socialize there. But now with the advent of the last 10 years with Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and everything, it's really difficult because people sometimes tend to have this FOMO feeling of being left out. And I think I really would love to discuss this with the panel, because I feel that a lot of times people believe the personas that they see online, and they probably believe that those are all true, and sometimes they get too stressed not to achieve those things. What does anyone want to talk a bit about that?
Me? Oh, go on.
You look like you want to talk about that.
I'm happy to. Yeah, no, I can understand social media being a big pressure on everyone. Because I guess, when I was doing art or CG, I knew the students and I knew some other people and companies, and that was it. Now you're comparing yourself to anyone and everyone. And even I do the same with my, again, I'm in training, but if I see another company, it's like, oh man, they did that training course, I was going to do that. And it's like, oh, they did it better than me, or whatever, so you can get very caught up with, again, not being good enough or not being quick enough or still needing to improve, and then always thinking that whenever you get a job, you're still not going to be good enough. I'm helping a company at the minute recruit, and the artists are like, what if I'm not good enough? And it's like, no, what are you comparing yourself to? A 15-year veteran who's been modeling since, X amount of time. So it's very easy to get caught up. And I know what I've done recently as well is I just put a limit on how much time I can go on apps. And I did it for my kids first, but I was like, no, I'm doing it for me now. And I feel so much better for it. I just don't look on Instagram or LinkedIn so much anymore, which is what the main platforms I used. And instead, I'll just go out for a run instead, or I'll use that time to do actual work. I think that's important, is you can get caught up in looking at stuff that you're never actually doing stuff. And then you're in this cycle of, I'm not good enough, but I'm not practicing. I'm just looking at other people's work. And, you should time yourself how long you go on it for. You might be scrolling for half an hour, 45 minutes. And that's 45 minutes that you could have been doing some work, or you could have been practicing, and you could have been making yourself better. So I know I've limited my usage, which is why I've ignored X amount of messages and emails, but that feels good as well. It's like, oh, I haven't answered them. I'll get back to them soon. But yeah, it is an area that you can get caught up and just compare yourself constantly and critique yourself as well constantly, like, waiting for likes or comments. I know I did a post once and someone said, what was the point of it? I said, I just wanted to put it out there. And they're like, but what was the purpose and the value? It's like, I don't know. I just felt like putting it out there. Like, I'm not, and I said to them, I'm not putting stuff out there for you to approve or disapprove. I'm just putting stuff out there that I've done as a bit of a journey of my work, not It isn't meant to be anything other than that. Like, there's no agenda. It's just stuff that I wanted to post. So, and they were like, okay, fine.
And you will also find that sometimes this happens a lot, people thinking that they have to have almost like a marketing strategy behind their image, and this and that. And I think it's actually a detriment, just like what you just mentioned. You just posted because you wanted to post it. Why not? What's the problem with that? And I feel like growing organically your social media presence is always the best approach, because one thing I wanted to tell all of you on the audience here is that a lot of times what you see on social media, this is no surprise, you won't be shocked by this, it's actually not true. That a lot of things you see are not really happening for real. If you see a post that has like thousands of likes, or if you see a post that has thousands of retweets, there's one thing you always need to consider, is that it is possible to these days to buy likes and to buy retweets for very short amount of money, And so never really compare yourself or even get stressed about the fact that maybe someone has a lot of followers or has a lot of likes or has a huge amount of people retweeting what they've done. You don't know if that person is really doing it organically, or if they have a marketing company behind it, or if they just hired some company somewhere to tweet for them. Because it is possible for you pay $10 or $20 and you get 1,000 likes. It is really possible. So all of this with social media is just, it's like the metaverse. It's smoke and mirrors. No pun intended with the company, but it's like smoke and mirrors, It doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not real life. And the faster you realize that, the better you'll feel yourself, because you'll stop thinking about it. You'll disconnect and then organically post stuff. I feel like posting something today. I watched this movie. I want people to experience. I'm just going to post a link about that, and that's it. So don't approach your artistic work as a as a brand that you need to construct. Try to just grow organically and don't compare yourself to other people. It's pointless. You don't know their journey. Maybe they have a different journey, or they're in different times of their career. Maybe they have a much longer career and they've been around for longer. Of course, they're going to have a bigger following. It's normal.
Yeah, I've got a tiny following, so if you want to follow, you know where to find me. So please do. I should have done that at the beginning. Yeah? Oh, I should have promoted. Yeah, that was my pitch.
Smash that like button. Smash that subscription.
I didn't know I could pay for this stuff.
Smash.
You're saying I can pay for followers and likes? Give me... No, I'm joking. Whatever's going to make you happy, I think. But I think if it is making you down, and if you're feeling down because you saw something online, then maybe question... where could you be spending your time for something that makes you feel better? Like, go watch a film, go for a run, go for a swim. There's just so many things you could do that will probably, make you feel better than scrolling. And again, that's what I found in the last, it's probably been 3 weeks since I put my limit on it. And now I have got time to run, and I wake up earlier, and I still go to bed late, but I wake up earlier to do stuff, and stuff that I want to do, rather than moaning that I didn't have time to go for a run or time to go to a swim. So it's time you get back for your own craft and looking after yourself, I would say. But if you still want to like and follow, then I won't say no.
Okay, so talking about social media, it's the point of view you have to the outside. And I always, if I have the feeling that one of my students is facing a problem like that, so that the competition really hits that person really hard, kind of always having the feeling, I'm not as good as. So sometimes we talk about, what are your needs? And you would say, okay, needs, yeah, come on, I know, 1, 2, and kind of, no, 7? 7. Yeah, 7. Do you know yourself? I don't know. Yeah, maybe, sometimes it's also helpful to go into that. Who am I? What do I really want? What are my needs? What had been my needs 10 years ago? And so then you get a different angle. And that also can help, to get a little bit of space, to the outside view. So that's also, sometimes we like to discuss. And I realized that well, it's normal. We don't think so much about ourselves. We look more to the outside. And but that could be also something that once in a while could be, like a thought. And yep.
I mean, just quickly, I should say, I mean, I think there is a huge amount of good that you can use in social media. Like most of the jobs I've had in the last 3 years have been because I posted something. And I joke when I go to places sometimes, I say, oh, I'm going to post this and get my next job. And that's pretty much been consistent, and people laugh at it, but it's like, no. So I'm hoping after this I'm going to SIGGRAPH. But so you can use it, I think. It's just, I don't know, I guess you just don't want to get caught up in the whirlwind of it. So I don't want to bash it and say don't use it at all, because it is the platform for posting your work on an international stage. Like you can't not have your work on, say, Instagram or LinkedIn or ArtStation and these websites. That is where you're marketing yourself and your skills. I think it's just getting caught up in comparing yourself that I worry about when people say, I looked at this person's work and they looked at it for like 5 hours, but they didn't do anything. And I've had people like that where, there's one person I can think of now where he's always sending me other people's work. And it's like, why aren't I this good? And it's like, because you're not doing anything. You're not doing any work. And you can say that to them, they just won't get it. They'll just be like, yeah, but I think I can do it. And it's like, well, that's great that you can think you can do it, but you got to do it and then post it. But if you're not doing it, then it's not going to happen.
It takes a long time. It takes a long time to be good at this job, and takes years and years and years and decades. And sometimes people forget that, I think.
To be good at anything.
Yeah, at anything. Yeah, exactly. Like to be really good at anything, it takes a long time, and people sometimes forget this, I think. And I feel also that could drive some issues at work as well, and some anxiety and some instability, because you are so stressed that you're not as good as your colleague next to you. But maybe instead of comparing yourself to him, maybe just chat with him and try to learn with that senior or the other person that is next to you anyway. So, but yeah, sorry, you were going to say.
I was going to change gears a little bit and talk, the thing about COVID is it's changed the way that we work. And for a lot of people, they like to work in a silo, or they like to work alone, and that suits their personality and it suits their skills. But I've found that for a lot of people I speak to who are emerging and mid-career, and they are looking for people to mentor them. They are looking for those relationships where you're in a collaborative environment and you're learning by watching what other people around you are doing. So, as we're sort of crawling our way out of this new reality that we're living in, at least for Scanline, we're trying to get people back into the office and create a hybrid where, for the people who want to be home, which tends honestly to be more senior people and people who have families and they've really enjoyed this time, to have them come back to the office 2 or 3 days a week, and then give people who miss that social environment and who miss that opportunity of learning and being mentored and collaborating, give them a chance to have that experience. So we're trying to create this new hybrid role model moving forward. I mean, our Munich office, we literally redid the whole thing, and we're going to open it up starting next Monday, and it'll be 3 days a week. And maybe once a month, the whole entire effects team will come in, and it won't be just show-based, and they'll have a lunch together, and they'll just have an opportunity to... I was joking earlier that, people, we don't know how to talk to each other anymore. We've been so isolated for so long, and I was down in the recruiting booth, and, people weren't talking to me, and I said, you're on mute. So take yourself off mute. So anyway, we're trying to create that environment where you get the best of both worlds. You get that opportunity to work at home, or be with your family, or just someone who really likes to work in isolation, but you also get an opportunity for this collaboration. And I think it's critical, and critical to your well-being. So hopefully you can encourage wherever you're working to create an environment that is more sustainable for your needs, whether it's that hybrid or whether it's continuing to work at home on your own.
And don't be shy about talking with the company about that, because the company, as much as people maybe think that the company is not open to those discussions, they probably are. If they're a good company, if they have a lot of staff, and if they are an international studio, I am certain that they would be open to discuss all these matters, not just working from home with a hybrid system, or even maybe coming in and organizing some days of the week that everyone gets together, but also even with other issues. If you're feeling down, or if you're having some mental anxiety, or if you're having some issues with your life, even with your personal life, I would really recommend you to open up with the company and open up with your supervisors and your seniors to try to talk to them. Don't do this alone, you know, because especially now with COVID, we're all at your house, you know, we're all like inside the house in front of the computer. We sometimes neglect talking with other people and having chats and conversation. And I feel like this is so important. So don't be afraid of reaching out. And you could really reach out to any friends you have on the company, or even reach out to HR, or reach out to supervisors on the company and discuss your problems. And because if you have problems, the company also will have a problem. I'm sure they will help you as well with these kind of things. And I think sometimes people think that, no, they're never going to help, they're never going to understand. But you'll be surprised to know that a lot of us also have the same issues. And we will understand, and we will help you, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, I had, you know, there was a death in the extended family. And again, it's quite hard to keep it a secret. I only really worked for DNEG for 5 years, so it was DNEG. And they, you know, when they found out, they said, take another week off. And then I was able to go up to my boss. I've got loads of kids, like 4, and basically said, you know, I've got to watch the kids more and stuff now. And this is pre-COVID. They said, just tell us what you want to do, and we'll figure something out. And I said, okay, can I work from home on Fridays? And they're like, yeah. You know, so it was, you know, they were so understanding, and that all of that took was a conversation. And I could have just maybe bottled it up and just carried on working and getting angry and them not knowing, like going in 5 days a week because it's a 2-hour commute in and out, getting angry. But, you know, we just had an open conversation. They were very understanding and, you know, had great empathy and said, yeah, you know, let's try and make it work. We didn't set up a remote machine. I think I had a laptop that they would give at the time pre-COVID. So it was still locked off the internet, but I could still work from home and then go in that way. So yeah, it's definitely worth speaking to, I guess, your line manager or your HR. And I guess if you do get bite back of, you know, just get over it and get on with the work, then maybe you just need to question the company you're working for and the people you're working with, because maybe they just don't have your backs and they just want to get shots out the door, and that's their priority rather than being more people orientated.
And this is really important because you do have a lot of power, probably more power than you think right now, especially now, these days. Like, there's so much work out there. There's so much work. Companies are desperate to find artists. So if you're not comfortable or not happy on the place where you are, there's no problem of walking away. I've walked away from companies all the time. I've been in companies that I didn't really feel like, this is not working for me. It's not really the type of environment I like. I don't like this, or I don't like maybe I don't like the environment. Maybe I don't like the toxicity that I find there. Or maybe I don't like the way the production is handling it. It's really up to you to walk away and find a better partner. I think that's really important, and people sometimes forget this. You do have a lot of power. There's a lot of work to be done these days. And if one company is not going to help you, there's 10 more companies that probably would help you. So always consider that, you know, like make sure you are if you're you're talented, you have your work, you have your worth, you know. Make sure no one takes that away from you, and just move on to a new place.
And I think, like, you started in talking about the elephant in the room. And I think sometimes you would be amazed how many people are facing a type of problem in that area. So the other day I talked to a colleague and I said, oh, we have a student, he's really has problems. He's, you know, like shy, and he's not, you know, like walking towards, you know, like a lecturer and wants to talk to him. And so the colleague looked at me and said, he's like me. And I'm kind of, what? And he's kind of, yeah. You know, a situation like that stresses me so much, you know. Karin, you know, like I'm sweating, you know, I have to change the T-shirts, you know, because I'm afraid. I'm kind of, you are? I never thought about that, you know, because he looks different, you know, when we work together. So, and I assume it's the same in the industry. I think if you talk in the right way, I think you will be amazed how many people will understand because they have same issues, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, should we open up the floor for some questions, or do you want to?
So what do you guys? We have other topics as well, but I would love to hear. You know, if you have questions, I think that would be great, and we could sort of.
We have a mic there. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we already see some hands open up. Let's go for it. We still have 15 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for that talk. I think it's very important because I know from the juniors I have, and I was one as well, that is important to hear all over again. But there's one bigger thing that I like to address is the real big guns in terms of therapy or something you need. What about that? Because I think in some cases, all these tricks fail and you burn out and you need something, and it's still kind of a stigma that you say, I need a shrink or something like this. How can you address that as a company or as a supervisor or something like that?
Well, I know on the link that I mentioned earlier that the VES put together, there is a long list of resources that can help you, or if you have people that you want to recommend. There are some therapists listed there as well as organizations that are, many of them that are free, and that's helpful. But I mean, there's no shame in the game. If you need some therapy, you should definitely advocate that for the people who you're managing and for yourself, if that's what's, you know, going to be the path to you feeling better about yourself.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this panel here today, because we feel like sometimes people are ashamed of discussing these things, and sometimes people are ashamed of reaching out, but it's really important to reach out. But yeah, I left a link on the screen there, and you can see some of the resources that the Visual Effects Society is putting up there, yeah.
I mean, and I think there are other local, you know, in every region and city, there are probably some resources that are free. But one of the things about this is all of the recommendations are people who understand the nature of this business that we're in, which I think is important.
I also, you know, I want to, you know, like add something to that because, you know, like sometimes you have the problem if you go to a, let's say, a normal therapist and he has no idea of your working field. So I heard last week a comment and he was like, come on, you have to stop being arty after 8 hours. And I'm kind of, I think he never met people, you know, like studying something like that. So, and I think that would be, you know, like really good because those people know how you think and what's the passion about. And so that's sometimes the problem you have when you go to somebody who is not involved or familiar with people from the industry, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of hands. I think you were next. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Romain Boniface. I am an artist, junior compositor. So I have one important question because I took some Hugo course. So let me know if you don't understand my question. So I wanted to know about handicap. So I want you to know if you have any experience about discrimination against artists with handicap.
Yeah, with the handicap. Yeah.
That's a great question. And I have to say, personally, I have not had an opportunity to hire somebody that has a physical handicap or a different handicap. But it wouldn't, as a recruiter, it wouldn't deter me in any way whatsoever. I mean, I'm looking for skill, I'm looking for aesthetic, and I'm looking for someone who's collaborative. And those are the three criteria for which I'm looking to hire people always. So I wish that I could tell you an experience I've had, but I haven't yet. I haven't had that opportunity.
But having said that, I do think the industry needs to go further on that, because I do know some companies still don't have wheelchair access, still don't have the proper tools for deaf ear. They still don't have the proper tools for problems with vision. I think the companies should do more about this for sure. But the same way they should do more about other things. But this is an important thing that more companies should really focus their attention, you know, especially in like coming from London. I work in London. I think none of the companies that I worked for had even a simple wheelchair access. They didn't even have that, you know. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done there, you know. We've talked, the two of us, about that before, yeah.
I mean, I just think of one company now off the top of my head that I've spoken to, which is ILM, who over the last year or so, they have got now more groups for different, get-together groups for different people, which is kind of moving more towards that side of things where you're saying companies are now need to do more. So it's great that that is happening, I think. But again, I think it's more of an awareness thing. If you let the companies know, then hopefully they will, address your needs and try and get you to fit in. And again, as you say, if they've got the skill or you've got the skill, then they'll support you. I'm supporting a couple of students, and they've got their handicaps. I don't like to call them handicaps, but they might be slightly slower getting things or doing things, but they can figure it out and they'll still do it. And from a teaching perspective, it just means you have to be a bit more patient with them. And from, I guess, a company perspective, it's the same. You have to be able to be more patient and accommodating.
But from a psychological view, if you really are able to integrate all different types of people with different issues, I think it will change also, like the way how you interact. For example, we had like at the Animation Institute, like when we are doing the recruiting. So one of those issues is if you are artist, so you fit in, you have like a qualification of, like showing what you can, and you fit in. Fitting in means, like, are you able to be, like integrated in a team? All the others, it's not important. And we talked about those things, and we decided that we stick to those two facts, and I think it's really important. And I believe that it will change, like the way of the students interact with each other, and you get a different angle, and sometimes maybe not that outgoing angle all the time, So therefore, I think it's how should I say? It's an asset if you integrate people.
Hi. You mentioned the importance of coming together and the power we have as artists to make sure we have a better work environment. And I think the Visual Effects Society is definitely a step in the right direction. But I kind of wanted to ask about the other elephant in the room, which is unions, and what your thoughts were on unions, or more the lack of unionized artists in the industry.
I'm happy to start that, to answer that. I'm part of the union in the UK. I've been for years, and my personal view is that every artist should be unionized, and I think if we don't get there, this will never really change. And I know that it's difficult because every country will be different. Fortunately, we do have a union in the UK called BEC2, and it's specifically for the film and visual effects industry and creative industry. So I guess we're fortunate in that sense. I know some countries don't have that. But there is always a way for you to research and try to find a union that would be close to that kind of work that you're doing. The same way that maybe you can't find a union that would work specifically with visual effects, but maybe there's a union that would be close enough to help you. I found personally the union has helped me a lot. Like I've had arguments with companies that I had to have lawyers to help me with contracts. The union helped me with this. The union also helped me with with salary disputes. The union also helped me with credits on productions. I feel that's really a powerful tool, and I personally think everyone should be part of it. But I don't know what you all think about that.
I'm not part of the union. And I've got nothing against unions, and I would probably join at some stage. I guess the reason I haven't joined or even thought about it, and I worked in London when they had all the BEC2 and people were pushing for it. The only reason I haven't joined, I guess, is primarily because I grew up in the 80s and I got a lot of crap growing up as a kid, and I figured out how to look after myself and talk back when someone gave me any attitude. So I guess I've been the same going into contract negotiations and things like that. Is I won't, I guess, accept something that I'm not happy with, and I'm happy to make a bit of noise if I need to, whether it's contract salary or anything like that. But I'm all for the union. And again, it's probably something that I'll look into. It's just me personally, I haven't felt like I needed it up to this stage.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked for companies that are union. I worked for DreamWorks for years, and all of our LA and at the time our Northern California offices were unionized. And I've worked for companies that weren't. And I mean, I guess for me, I want to work for someone, particularly as a recruiter, I want to work for someone that I really think has integrity, because I don't feel good about myself to get on the phone and talk to people and advocate for them to come and join my company if it's bullshit. Like, you know, what am I doing? Like, what a waste of my time. So I've chosen to work for companies that I really believe in what they're doing and the culture that they provide and the quality of work and the camaraderie and collaborative nature of it. So yes, I can see where a union could be an advantage, but for me, it's really like trying to figure out what's the right company that's going to take care of you, whether you're union or you're not. Yeah.
Anyone else that has? I had a lot of hands.
Hey, one more question.
One more? Okay. Why?
Hi.
Like, okay.
I'm just gonna stand up because I'm pretty small, so you can see me. Hi.
Hi.
So, first of all, thank you. You've been very candid, and you've said some important things to young talent out there. So thank you for saying those things. They're important. I'm actually the co-producer of the Reignite Yourself series. I work for the Quebec Film and Television Council. It was produced with us. And just an anecdote, so you know, we did this series with psychiatrists and psychologists. And when they heard about the struggles that artists go through, they said, oh, that's just like us. In the medical world, we live the same things, and they are saving lives. So just, you know, take a breath. It's okay. Second thing is we're producing season 2. We're going to do shorter episodes, and we're looking for people with stories. So we're going to go through some interesting subjects like loneliness, happiness, belonging, leading with empathy. All of these, we're going to post these online, and we're looking for artists with stories to tell about those subjects. So please feel free to contact me. I'm here on site. My name is Anne Fossier. Sorry, it's French. It's Fossier. If you want to connect on LinkedIn and talk about this, I'm very happy to hear about your stories. And also a reminder, it's all free, even though it was produced with the VES Society. It's all free. Just go and listen to the episodes. It's also in podcast series, so you can take in your headphones in and just go outside and walk and have a nice day. So
thank you so much.
That's it.
Could we just have one last question? Is that possible? I know. Saint's hand has been there for a while. Over here.
Thanks very much. Just also to mention Access VFX, who have a podcast series on mental health. It's worth checking out. But this was a question really about the creative industries part of the title and the exceptionalism or difference that the creative industries brings, because without going too far into it, I reckon that one of the things about the creative industries is that the outcomes are always ambiguous, right? You start off with an idea, you don't know how you're going to get to the end, but you've got to get something. That can cause a huge amount of stress. The second thing is, in the creative industries, we have a lot of artists who are neurodivergent. You know, the evidence shows that creative people have dyslexia and dyspraxia in greater amounts. So could you talk a bit, maybe, we haven't got time, but can you say a couple of words about what's the difference between this industry in terms of mental health and, say, making clocks or making cars? Thank you.
I don't think there's much of a difference, really, to be honest. And I think that's why people sometimes don't talk about this, because they think it's something to be embarrassed. But every single, like, high-tempo environment will have some kind of stress. And even environments that are not high-tempo will also have stress. So, like, mental health and well-being is an universal thing. It's not just for visual effects or just for the creative industry, for sure. It's something that happens on everything, you know.
And I loved what the woman before you said about, you know, we're not finding a cure for cancer. we're making superheroes. So take a breath.
It's just a commercial, yeah.
With no mic, because we're not supposed to have any more
I
questions.
just wanted to say one
Bring
thing.
it on.
Well, when you're working in the creative industry, it's always you as an artist, and it's more personal. When I'm a lawyer, and I have a case, and I'm there, and I'm dealing with other facts, and I'm not 100% with myself, my soul involved.
Did everybody hear that? It was such a great comment.
That makes a huge difference. All artists are taking it very personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, when I'm a medical, assistant or whatever, working for something else, I'm not that much involved. I can cut.
Did you guys hear that in the back? So she had this great comment about, as an artist, as a creative person, you are more invested. It is yourself.
We need to go.
And we have to go, as opposed to if you're a lawyer. But it was a beautiful comment. Thank you so much. Thank you,
you.
everybody.